The topic is called datasets. Okay, I'll be covering other topic called like what is a shared data source and shared datasets. Okay, now you might be remembering one thing. So what you have seen here, I'll just add one more. So now what we have seen. So whenever you want to develop the report, so I've created one report. Okay, in that report I have created a data source and I have created data set. Okay, I have created data source that is a database, and I have written the query that is nothing but data set. So I have created. This is report 1. So whenever I'll go to the report 2, the report 2 also should have the same data source, and we should also create the data source and data set in the report 2. Okay, and so let's say they need the same data source and same data set in the report 2. So they have created. Let's go with the report 3. There also let's say we need the same data source and same data sets. At least not the data set, but they need at least the same data source. Okay, so for this purpose, wherever you go, you need to create the data set again. Data sets are data set, data set or data source again. Even though you might have created in the first report, but you also need to create it in the other report also. There is no excuse for you. So in this scenario, what people do, they'll create one shared data source or shared data set. Okay, and they'll point that shared data set here. Instead of creating a new data source, they'll just point the shared one which you created in each report 1, report 2, report 3. So I have created, right? So instead of creating a new one, I'll just point that data source to the existing shared one. That's it. Are you able to get my point? So now we'll see how to do that. Okay, and it will work. So what I'll do, I'll just create one more report. Add new, I'll go here, add new item. It is a report file. So I'll add a data source, add data source. I'll add it as a test database, right? TEST. Dot. Click here, test. Okay. Okay, same with the data set also. Add as a data set. Star from company. I will not have any parameter, just tell a star from company. So I'll get the column. Okay, I'll name this data set as company. Okay, done. I've created. Now what I'll be doing, since now you might be seeing I'm using the same data source and data set in two reports. I'm having both the same data source and same data set in two reports. I'm having them in the report 4. Okay, I also have them in the report 5. Okay, so what I'll do now, instead of having this, using this again and again, I'll minimize this one. So now I'll create a shared data source. Click on this, add new data source. I'll name it as test. Okay, edit. It's a dot and the database is test. Done. Okay, now I have created a shared data set source here. Okay, the same way I'll create the shared data set also. So since it is a shared data set, see, I can directly point to the shared data source only here. Okay, and since I am creating the shared data set, the source I can directly get from the shared data source itself. See, okay. Now I'll write select star from company. Star. So what are the data sets you have? It is nothing but it is from the shared only. So I'll name it as CMPNY. That's it, done. Now I created the shared data source and shared data set. Very good. Now what I'll do, so wherever in whichever report I'm using that both the shared data set and shared data set, okay, I'll save them and closing them. So I'm using this both data set and data source in two reports, that is the report 4 and 5. So I'll go to the report 5. Now see, remember there is directly database symbol, right? I'll click on this. Now here I'll just click on the shared data source. That's it. Use shared data source as reference. Now I'll select this test. because shared data source is a test, right? So I'll tell that, okay, done. Now automatically see when I clicked, now it pointed to some arrow shortcut mark. Okay, same with the data set also. Click on this. Okay, because it is the same name, so automatically it will point to that. Now here, yeah, because I can't point the shared data set because I'm passing the parameters, right? So shared data set doesn't have any parameters, so I can't point it. It should be the same, so I can't use that one. Now just go to the report file. In the report file, I can point them both. Click on this. So I'll be using the shared data set. That's it, done. Okay. Whatever the name you are given, the name will be same. There is no effect to the name. See. Now shared data set. Click on this. I'll just pass here. See, one more thing. Use shared data set here. Now you can see what are the shared data set. I have only one, so you can see that one only. Click OK. Automatically that will be added here. Okay. So basically the shared data sets and shared data source will be useful when you deploy the package on the server. Because when you deploy also, because this will be useful. Let's say you are connected to development server. You are connected to development server. Okay. So let's say you had 3 reports. You are report 1, report 2 and report 3. Every report has their own data source and data sets. Okay. So now let's say the user, everything is pointing to some development server. So you are ran the reports, done. Now let's say after some days they want to move it to QA or testing server. So what they need to go to each and every data source and they need to change. It's a burden, right? So instead of that, if you create a shared one, okay, shared data source and data sets, then you can point everything here to the shared one only. So whenever you want to change, instead of changing this all 3, you can directly change only the shared one. Okay. So basically it will be useful when you deploy the reports. So I'm going to cover this one when you deploy the reports, where the shared data source and shared data sets goes. Okay, it is very much helpful thing. So better to use whenever you have multiple data sources to be created. You can directly use a shared data source and data set here. Okay, that will be very much helpful. So everyone is clear with the shared data source and shared data set?